The Odyssey lurched violently as the alien's latest salvo tore through the hull, sending sparks and acrid smoke swirling through the command deck. Captain Elena Vasquez's knuckles whitened on the armrests of her seat, her eyes flicking to the damage reports flashing across the screen. They were on the edge. The last human warship in a fleet that had once been the pride of Earth's military might, now reduced to a single battered vessel. "Shields at 25%, reported Lieutenant Jace McAllister, his voice tight with the strain of constant battle. His eyes were locked on the tactical display, fingers moving rapidly to redirect power. "We can't take much more of this." Elena didn't respond immediately, her mind racing. It had been nearly a year since the Odyssey had seen any reinforcements. The rest of humanity's forces had been decimated by the alien race known only as the Karn, a mysterious and powerful force whose motives remained as enigmatic as their technology. The Karn's fleet was vast, relentless, and merciless. In the wake of the initial attack, entire colonies were wiped from existence, entire star systems lost. And now, with the Karn's final wave descending on Earth's last survivors, Elena was tasked with the impossible, finding hope in the unknown. Her thoughts were interrupted by the shrill beeping of the communication console. McAllister shot her a questioning look, and she nodded. "Patch it through," she ordered. The screen flickered to life, and the face of Admiral Rowan appeared, his expression grave. The man had been a mentor to Elena, once a towering figure in the human fleet. Now, though, he appeared aged, worn down by the constant fighting. Behind him, the faint hum of his command station echoed, but there was no time for pleasantries. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Rowan began, "we've received an urgent transmission. This could be our last chance." "Go ahead, Admiral," Elena said, leaning forward. The Odyssey rocked again, but she barely flinched. "We've intercepted a signal from deep space. It's faint, but there's a pattern, human in origin. At first, we thought it was a distress signal from a forgotten colony, but it's more than that. We believe it could be a weapon." Elena's pulse quickened. A weapon. That could change everything. But there were too many unknowns. The Karn fleet was closing in, their scouts already visible on the edge of the system. The Odyssey couldn't survive another engagement, not with their resources running dry. "I'll need more details, sir," Elena said, voice steely. "Where's the source of this signal?" The Admiral hesitated, then pulled up a holographic star map. His finger traced a remote corner of space, far from any known human territories. "There," he said, "a dead zone. No recorded systems for light years, nothing but empty space. But there's something there, something we haven't detected before. If this is a weapon, it could be our last hope." Elena stared at the map. It was a gamble, a desperate one, but it was the only one left. Time was running out. The Karn would find them sooner or later, and with the Odyssey's limited firepower, survival wasn't guaranteed. "We're going," she said, voice resolute. "Plot a course for the signal, Lieutenant. Full speed." McAllister hesitated. "But Captain, the Karn—" "I know," Elena cut him off. "We'll outrun them. We have no other choice. The Odyssey is all we've got." The ship groaned as the engines flared to life, engines that had seen better days, but still hummed with enough power to push them through the void. Elena's heart pounded in her chest as she stared out the viewport, watching the distant stars streak by. Somewhere in that darkness, humanity's fate awaited, and Elena would find it, no matter the cost. The Odyssey cut through the silent black of deep space, her hull groaning with every pulse of the strained engines. Elena sat in the captain's chair, her gaze fixed on the vast, starless void ahead. For the first time in months, there was a strange sense of purpose in her chest. The signal from deep space had set them on a dangerous course, one that led them beyond the known galaxy and into the uncharted territories. The rest of the crew had been on edge ever since the order was given, their nerves taut from the constant threat of the Karn. Yet, here they were, racing toward something unknown, something that could either save them or doom them all. Approaching the coordinates, McAllister's voice cut through her thoughts. He was at the helm, eyes flicking between the instruments as he gently adjusted their course. "Any signs of the Karn?" Elena asked, her voice tight. She could feel the weight of their every decision, each one pushing them closer to the precipice of extinction. "Nothing yet, but I don't like it," McAllister replied, his brow furrowed. "The farther we go, the less stable the sensors get. It's like we're moving through a dead zone." A low hum filled the ship as they crossed an invisible threshold, an energy barrier that seemed to warp their surroundings, distorting the stars into elongated streaks. The navigation system flickered, briefly losing their position. "We're in it," Elena murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. She stood from her chair and walked toward the observation window. In the distance, the faintest glimmer of light flickered, a single dim point on the otherwise pitch-black canvas. "That's the signal," she said, her voice rising with an unfamiliar mix of excitement and dread. "Prepare for deceleration." The Odyssey's engines hissed as they slowed. Outside, the eerie point of light resolved into a massive structure, partially obscured by the swirling cosmic dust around it. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't even a moon. It was something else entirely. A colossal, monolithic ship, half buried in the gravitational pull of an unseen star. The crew gathered on the command deck, their attention fixed on the strange object. Elena's instincts screamed that something was wrong, but they had come too far to turn back now. As they approached, the ship seemed to grow larger, its shadow falling over the Odyssey. A deep, unnatural hum echoed through the hull, like a heartbeat, resonating through the bones of the vessel. "Hold position," Elena ordered. "I want a full scan now." McAllister worked furiously at the console, but the results were more perplexing than anything else. "It's not just a ship," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "It's a station, but it's been abandoned for centuries, at least. No life signs, no power readings. It's a ghost ship." "Keep scanning," Elena snapped, gripping the back of her chair as the ominous hum grew louder, vibrating the walls of the Odyssey. "There has to be something here. A weapon, a clue, something." Just as McAllister began to adjust the settings, the ship's alarms blared, a sudden and violent warning. "Captain, the hull integrity is failing," McAllister shouted, his fingers flying across the console. "Something is pulling us in. I can't break free." Elena's pulse quickened. The gravitational anomaly, the strange hum, it wasn't just a station, it was alive. The Odyssey's systems began to flicker, lights dimming as the ship was slowly, inexorably drawn toward the structure. A violent pull, stronger than any artificial gravity, gripped them from all sides. Elena could feel it in the pit of her stomach, the sensation of falling, of being dragged into a trap. "Get us out of here," she barked, but McAllister's hands were frozen, panic creeping into his voice. I can't. The engines are failing." A blinding flash of light illuminated the entire ship, and for a moment, the universe seemed to stand still. Then, without warning, everything went dark. The crew awoke in a disorienting silence, the ship's emergency lighting flickering weakly. Elena's head throbbed as she slowly regained consciousness, her mind struggling to make sense of the chaos. The ship had stopped moving. The pull, the hum, the gravitational field, gone. What the hell happened? She muttered, pushing herself up from the floor. Her eyes darted to the main viewport. The station was still there, but they weren't moving toward it anymore. "Captain," McAllister's voice was shaky. I think we've been pulled inside. But we're in a different part of the station now. Something changed. The station's interior is shifting." Elena's heart sank. They had no idea what kind of dangers awaited them inside this strange relic. But one thing was certain. They were no longer just investigating. They were part of something much bigger, and whatever lay ahead could hold the answers humanity needed, or its final extinction. Prepare for boarding. Everyone, suit up. We go in and we find out what's inside. If this is the weapon we've been looking for, then we're going to take it." As she moved toward the airlock, Alina's thoughts churned. The Odyssey was at the mercy of forces beyond their comprehension. Whatever happened next would change everything. They had entered the abyss, and there was no turning back. The airlock hissed open, revealing a cavernous interior cloaked in darkness. Alina led the boarding party, her pulse steady but her mind sharp, taking in every detail of the massive alien station. The walls were smooth, seamless metal that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light from their helmet lamps. Strange symbols, resembling a hybrid of human and alien script, were etched across the surfaces, glowing faintly as if alive. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice firm over the comms. Behind her, Lieutenant McAllister and the rest of the team followed, weapons at the ready. They had no idea what lay ahead, but the oppressive silence felt alive, as though the station itself was watching them. The team pressed forward, their footsteps echoing faintly in the stillness. Alina's sharp eyes scanned the alien architecture, taking note of the strange design. Long, curving corridors that seemed to twist and shift subtly as they walked. "This doesn't feel abandoned," said Dr. Lena Karim, the ship's chief scientist, her voice trembling slightly. She ran a handheld scanner along one of the walls. "There's residual energy here, faint but consistent. This place isn't dead, it's dormant." Alina frowned, pausing to examine one of the glowing symbols on the wall. It pulsed faintly under her touch, responding to her presence. She pulled her hand back instinctively, but the faint pulse lingered, spreading like ripples through the metal. "Captain," McAllister's voice came through the comms. "You should see this." Alina turned and followed his gaze to a massive chamber that opened up ahead. The team moved cautiously, their lamps illuminating an enormous, circular room filled with rows of what appeared to be stasis pods. Each one was built into the walls, stacked in spiraling patterns that rose to the ceiling. "Are those?" McAllister hesitated, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Pods," Alina finished grimly, stepping closer to one. She peered inside, her breath catching at what she saw. A figure lay within, humanoid but distinctly alien. Its elongated limbs and silvery skin shimmered faintly in the dim light. Strange markings covered its body, similar to the glowing symbols on the walls. The figure appeared to be in a deep sleep, its chest rising and falling almost imperceptibly. Dr. Karim knelt beside another pod, her scanner working furiously. "These beings, they're not Karn. Their biology is completely different. I don't think they're hostile. At least, not yet." Alina straightened, her mind racing. If this station wasn't abandoned, then what was its purpose? And why had it been emitting the human signal? As she turned to issue an order, a sudden tremor shook the chamber. The ground beneath them rumbled ominously, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. "Captain," McAllister shouted, "we've got movement." The stasis pods began to light up one by one, their soft glow intensifying until the entire chamber was bathed in an otherworldly radiance. Alina raised her weapon instinctively, her heart pounding as the first of the figures stirred, its eyes snapping open to reveal glowing crystalline pupils that seemed to pierce through her. "Fall back," she barked, but before the team could retreat, a booming voice echoed through the chamber, not spoken aloud but resonating directly in their minds. "You have awakened the Watchers. Why have you come?" Alina froze, her grip tightening on her weapon. The voice was ancient, resonating with a power that made the air itself vibrate. "We're here for answers," she said aloud, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Humanity is at the edge of extinction. We need your help." The glowing figure closest to her stepped forward, its movements fluid and graceful. "You seek salvation, but this place was not meant for your kind. Leave now, or risk bringing ruin upon yourselves." Another tremor rocked the chamber, and alarms blared through the station, a piercing wail that made Alina's blood run cold. The hum of energy grew louder, and the station began to shift around them. "Captain," McAllister shouted, "the station is destabilizing." Alina clenched her jaw. They couldn't leave, not yet. The answers they needed were here. She stepped forward, defying the towering figure. "Help us," she said, her voice firm, "or we all die here. Us, this station, and you." The figure stared at her for a long moment before lowering its head slightly, as if considering her words. Finally, it spoke again, its voice softer but no less powerful. "Very well, human. But know this. The truth you seek will come at a price." The chamber lit up with a sudden flash of light, and the team found themselves engulfed in a torrent of data, images, symbols, and memories flooding their minds. Alina staggered under the weight of it, realizing too late that they had unlocked something far greater than they'd bargained for. And somewhere deep within the station, something ancient and terrible began to stir. The torrent of alien information surged through Alina's mind like a tidal wave, a chaotic storm of images, sounds, and sensations that threatened to overwhelm her. Memories that weren't hers flashed before her eyes. Vast fleets of glowing ships traveling through the stars, worlds teeming with strange life forms, and a cataclysmic war that consumed entire galaxies. She gasped, clutching her head as the visions came to an abrupt halt, leaving her breathless and disoriented. The towering figure of the Watcher loomed before her, its crystalline eyes fixed on her with an inscrutable expression. "Now you know," it said, its voice resonating in her mind like a distant echo. "This station was not meant for you. It is a prison, and a grave." "A prison?" Alina managed to say, her voice hoarse. She looked around at the stasis pods lining the chamber. "For who?" "The Karn," the Watcher replied, its voice carrying a note of ancient sorrow. "Long ago, we, the ones you call Watchers, were the guardians of this galaxy. The Karn were our greatest creation, engineered to be protectors of life. But we were blind to the cost of our ambition. They turned against us, consuming all in their path. This station was our last stand, our attempt to imprison them before they could devour everything." Alina's blood ran cold. The Karn weren't just invaders, they were the remnants of a weaponized race, unleashed by their creators and spiraling out of control. "You stopped them," she said, glancing at the glowing pods. "You trapped them here." "Not all of them," the Watcher admitted. "A fraction escaped before the trap was sprung. They became what you now face, a relentless shadow of what they once were." McAllister stepped forward, his face pale. "If this is a prison, why are you still here? Why not destroy the Karn outright?" The Watcher tilted its head. "Because to destroy them would destroy us as well. We are bound to them, two halves of the same creation. If we perish, so does the balance of this galaxy. That is why we slumber, awaiting the day when another might finish what we could not." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. "The signal," she said. "Why send it? Why call us here?" The Watcher's crystalline gaze bore into her. "Because your kind has something we do not. Resilience. Adaptability. We saw in you a chance to end this war, to destroy the Karn completely. But such power comes with a cost." The chamber trembled again, the wailing alarms intensifying. From deeper within the station, a new sound emerged, a deep, guttural roar that sent a shiver through the crew. "They're waking up," Dr. Karim whispered, her voice barely audible. "The Karn." Alina gritted her teeth, gripping her weapon tightly. "What do we need to do?" she asked the Watcher, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. The Watcher extended an arm, and a small device emerged from its chest, floating toward Alina. "Take this. It is the key to the weapon buried within this station. But be warned, activating it will awaken us fully, and we cannot promise we will remain allies." Alina hesitated for only a moment before reaching out to grasp the device. The moment her fingers closed around it, a surge of energy pulsed through her, and the room seemed to tilt. "Captain," McAllister said urgently, "we need to move. Now." Elena nodded, her resolve hardening. "Everyone, fall back to the Odyssey. We'll figure out how to use this once we're clear." The team began to retreat, but the station was no longer dormant. The walls shifted, reshaping the corridors into a labyrinth of twisting paths. Strange, shadowy figures began to emerge from the edges of the chamber, their movements erratic and predatory. The Watcher's voice echoed one final time. "You have chosen your path, humans. Now survive it." The shadows lunged. Elena fired, the bright flash of her weapon illuminating the alien horrors before her. The team fought their way back, but as they fled, Elena knew one thing for certain. Humanity's fight wasn't just against the Karn anymore. It was against the station itself, and the ancient beings who had made it their prison. The price of hope was steep, and they were about to pay it. Elena sprinted down the twisting corridor, her pulse pounding in her ears as the alien station came alive around them. The walls shifted unnaturally, the smooth metal folding and reconfiguring like a living maze. Behind her, McAllister and the rest of the team fired desperately at the shadowy figures pursuing them. Blurry, indistinct shapes that flickered in and out of existence like ghosts. "Stay together," Elena shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. She clutched the alien device tightly, its cold surface humming faintly against her gloves. Whatever it was, it held the key to turning the tide against the Karn, but only if they could survive long enough to figure out how to use it. "This way," McAllister called, waving the team toward a side passage. The group veered sharply, but the corridor abruptly sealed itself off, a smooth metal wall slamming down in their path. "Damn it," Elena hissed, skidding to a halt. She glanced back, her breath catching as the shadowy figures closed in, their distorted forms emitting an eerie, static-like sound that set her teeth on edge. Karim's voice trembled over the comms. "Captain, they're not fully corporeal. My scanner can't get a clear reading on them. They're projections or echoes of something real. Real enough to kill us." McAllister snapped, firing a burst from his rifle. The shadows recoiled slightly, but they didn't stop advancing. Elena scanned the corridor, her mind racing. The station wasn't just a prison. It was a trap, designed to ensnare anyone who dared to enter. But traps could be turned against their creators. "Karim, can you access the station's systems?" Elena asked, already moving toward an alien console embedded in the wall. Its surface pulsed with faint light, the symbols shifting and rearranging themselves in response to her presence. I think so," Karim stammered, stepping forward with her handheld scanner. She connected it to the console, her fingers flying across the interface. The whole station's network is alive. It's like it's thinking, adapting to us. "Then think faster," Elena said, glancing back at the advancing shadows. "We need a way out now." Karim's scanner beeped, and a section of the wall ahead shimmered, revealing a hidden passage. "There. Move," Elena barked, leading the charge into the new corridor. The walls here were different, sleek and dark, their surface rippling faintly as if alive. The oppressive hum that had filled the station since their arrival grew louder, vibrating through their bones. The team emerged into a vast chamber dominated by a central platform. Hovering above it was a massive, intricate device, its structure a dizzying array of interlocking rings and glowing crystals. Energy coursed between its components, casting shifting patterns of light across the room. "That's it," Karim whispered, her eyes wide. "That's the weapon." Before Elena could respond, the Watcher's voice boomed in their minds, its tone both warning and command. "You stand at the heart of the station. The choice is yours. Wield the power to destroy the Karn, or let it consume you as it consumed us." The shadows swarmed into the chamber, their static forms coalescing into more solid shapes. Elena raised her weapon, but she knew they couldn't hold them off for long. "What do we do?" McAllister shouted, backing toward the platform. Alina stared at the alien device, her mind racing. The Watcher had said the weapon came at a cost. What that cost was, she didn't know. But they had no other option. "Cover me," she ordered, stepping onto the platform. The device seemed to react to her presence, its glowing crystals intensifying as she approached. She held the alien key aloft, the humming energy surging through her arm. The chamber trembled violently, and a voice, ancient and fragmented, spoke from the device itself. "To end the Karn, the wielder must bind with the core. Your mind, your will, your humanity will shape its power." Alina hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. If she activated the weapon, there was no turning back. It would change her, perhaps even destroy her. But if she didn't, humanity was doomed. She took a deep breath, her voice steady as she gave the order. "Get back to the Odyssey." "That's an order." McAllister stepped forward, his face pale. "Captain, no." "Now," she snapped. Reluctantly, the team began to retreat toward the exit, firing at the shadows to buy time. Alina turned back to the device, her grip tightening on the key. "I'm not afraid," she said softly, as much to herself as to the station. And then, without hesitation, she thrust the key into the device. The chamber erupted in blinding light, and Alina felt herself pulled into a vast, incomprehensible consciousness. The fate of humanity, and her own, hung in the balance. Alina's senses shattered as the alien device pulled her into its core. Colors she couldn't name and sounds that defied description overwhelmed her mind. She floated in a vast, endless void, surrounded by streams of light and data flowing like rivers through the cosmos. It wasn't just information. It was memory, will, and purpose, all compressed into a singularity of unimaginable power. Her body was still on the platform, but her consciousness was here, entwined with the station itself. She could feel its ancient intelligence probing her mind, testing her resolve. It didn't speak with words, but its intent was clear. "Are you strong enough to wield this power?" "I don't have a choice," she said, her voice echoing in the void. "Humanity doesn't have a choice. Show me what I need to do." The station responded, its presence shifting from adversarial to something almost collaborative. The streams of light coalesced into a vision. The Karn, once noble guardians, twisted into monstrous forms by their insatiable hunger. She saw the Watchers' desperate last stand, their sacrifice to trap the Karn within this station. And then she saw Earth, fragile and beautiful, teetering on the brink of annihilation. The vision faded, and Alina felt a surge of energy course through her. The station was offering her its power, but the cost was steep, her humanity. She would no longer be Alina Vega, captain of the Odyssey. She would become something more and something less. The weapon itself. Alina hesitated, the enormity of the decision bearing down on her. But then she thought of her crew, her people, and the billions of lives at stake. Her fear melted away, replaced by a fierce determination. "I accept," she whispered. The station's core exploded with light, and Alina screamed as the energy consumed her. Every thought, every memory, every part of her was unraveled and reforged in an instant. She felt herself expand, her mind fusing with the station's intelligence. For the first time, she understood its true purpose. The Odyssey crew watched in stunned silence as the chamber around them transformed. The walls glowed with a golden light, the shadowy forms of the Karn disintegrating as the station unleashed a pulse of pure energy. "Captain," McAllister shouted, shielding his eyes from the brilliance. "What's happening?" Dr. Karim's voice trembled with awe. She's become part of it. The station isn't just a prison. It's a weapon, and she's the trigger." Alina's voice echoed through the chamber, no longer constrained by her human form. It was deeper, resonant, and filled with a strange alien authority. "Get to the Odyssey. I'll hold them off. But, Captain, go." The crew obeyed, retreating through the shifting corridors as the station continued to change. Alina's presence filled every inch of it now, her consciousness woven into its very fabric. She could see the Karn waking, their rage boiling as they realized what was happening. With a thought, she activated the weapon. The station unleashed a massive wave of energy, obliterating the Karn that had emerged from their stasis pods. But it wasn't enough. Deep within the station, more Karn stirred, their ancient hunger undiminished. Elena turned her attention outward. She could sense the Karn fleet approaching, drawn by the station's reactivation. They were coming, and they wouldn't stop until they had consumed everything. Her voice echoed through the void, reaching out to the Odyssey. McAllister, listen carefully. I can use the station to destroy the Karn fleet, but I can't do it alone. You'll need to deliver the final blow. How? McAllister's voice crackled over the comms. The energy core of the Odyssey. You'll need to overload it and fire directly into the station's core. It will amplify the blast and wipe them out. That'll destroy the Odyssey, McAllister said, his voice tight. I know. There was a long silence. Then McAllister said, Understood, Captain. We'll make it count. As the Odyssey prepared for its final stand, Elena turned her focus back to the Karn. They were coming for her, for the station, for everything. But she wasn't afraid. She was ready. And she would make sure humanity survived, even if it cost her everything. The Odyssey rocketed away from the station, its engines roaring as McAllister pushed it to its limits. The crew worked furiously, preparing the ship for what they all knew would be its final mission. The alien station loomed behind them, its golden light piercing through the void, a beacon of both hope and dread. Status report, McAllister barked, his voice tight but steady. Dr. Karim glanced up from her console, her face pale. The Karn fleet is closing in fast. We got less than 10 minutes before they're within firing range. Engineering. Lieutenant Herrera's voice came through the comms, grim but resolute. We're rigging the energy core for overload now. It'll give us one hell of a blast. But once we fire, that's it. The Odyssey won't hold together. McAllister's jaw tightened. Understood. Keep me updated. He turned his gaze to the viewport, where the Karn fleet was beginning to take shape. Massive, organic ships bristling with spines and tendrils, moving like predators through the void. There were dozens of them, far more than the Odyssey could ever hope to fight. But they didn't have to fight. Not anymore. Within the station, Elena was everywhere and nowhere. Her consciousness flowed through its systems, controlling its vast network of weaponry and defenses. She could feel the Karn approaching, their overwhelming hunger pressing against her mind like a tidal wave. Her voice echoed across the comms, calm and commanding. McAllister, I'll hold the fleet at bay as long as I can. Once the core is ready, you'll have a narrow window to fire. Don't miss it. We won't, Captain, McAllister replied. The first Karn ships reached the edge of the station's defenses. Elena reacted instantly, unleashing a barrage of energy beams that lanced through the void, carving through the lead ships with surgical precision. Explosions blossomed in the darkness, but more Karn vessels surged forward, undeterred. They began firing back, their organic weapons spitting streams of corrosive plasma. Elena directed the station's shields to intercept the blasts, but she could feel the strain. The station was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. The Karn pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming. One of their ships rammed into the station, detonating in a massive explosion that sent shockwaves rippling through its structure. Elena gritted her teeth, focusing on keeping the defenses intact. On the Odyssey, McAllister's voice cut through the chaos. Herrera, status. Core's almost ready. Herrera shouted. Just a few more minutes. We don't have a few minutes, McAllister muttered. He turned to the weapons officer. Get a firing solution on the station's core. As soon as we're ready, take the shot. Aye, sir, the officer replied, their hands moving swiftly across the controls. The Karn fleet was closing in on the Odyssey now, some of their ships breaking away from the station to pursue the fleeing vessel. Plasma blasts streaked past the ship, close enough to make the hull shudder. Evasive maneuvers, McAllister ordered. Keep us in one piece until the core's ready." Inside the station, Elena felt the shift. The Karn were splitting their forces, dividing their attention between her and the Odyssey. It gave her a momentary advantage, but it wouldn't last. She reached out to the crew through the comms, her voice filled with urgency. "McAllister, the Karn are adapting. You need to fire now, whether the core's ready or not." "We need another 60 seconds, Captain," McAllister replied. "You don't have 60 seconds, Elena said firmly. "Do it now, or we lose everything." There was a brief pause. Then McAllister's voice came through, low but resolute. "Understood. Weapons, fire the core." On the Odyssey, the ship's core overloaded with a deafening roar, channeling its energy into a single, concentrated blast. The beam shot through space, a blinding lance of light that struck the station's core dead center. Inside, Elena felt the impact like a heartbeat, a surge of energy that resonated through her entire being. The station responded, amplifying the blast and releasing it in a cataclysmic wave of power that rippled outward, consuming the Karn fleet in an instant. The void erupted in light, brighter than any star, and then silence. When the light faded, the Odyssey was adrift, its systems failing one by one. On the bridge, McAllister stared at the view screen, his face illuminated by the dying glow of the station. "Did it work?" someone whispered. McAllister nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the empty void where the Karn fleet had been. It worked. But as the station's light began to fade, McAllister couldn't shake the feeling that the cost had been far greater than any of them could truly comprehend. And somewhere, deep within the station, Elena Vega was still watching. The Odyssey drifted in the cold expanse of space, its hull battered and scarred. Inside, the bridge was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of emergency power. McAllister sat in the captain's chair, his shoulders slumped under the weight of everything they had endured. Around him, the crew moved with a solemn efficiency, their faces etched with exhaustion and loss. "Status report," McAllister said, his voice hoarse. Dr. Karim looked up from her console, her expression grim. "Engines are offline. We've got life support for another 24 hours, maybe less. Communications are down, and the station is completely dark." McAllister's gaze flicked to the viewport, where the alien station loomed like a ghost, its golden light extinguished. The silence it emanated was deafening, a stark contrast to the overwhelming presence of Elena's voice they'd grown used to. He clenched his fists. "We're not leaving her behind." Karim hesitated. "Sir, with respect, Captain Vega isn't." "She's alive," McAllister interrupted, his voice firm. "Maybe not in the way we understand, but she's still in there. We owe it to her to find a way to bring her back." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. They had seen what Elena had become, how she had merged with the station to save them all. But now, with the station dormant, it felt like she had truly sacrificed herself. Before anyone could argue further, a faint vibration coursed through the ship. Lights flickered, and the consoles briefly came to life, displaying alien symbols that resolved into recognizable text. "Odyssey crew, do not lose hope." McAllister shot to his feet. "Elena." Karim stared at her console, her eyes wide. "It's her. She's using the station's remaining energy to reach us." The text changed, as if responding directly. "The Karn are gone. The station is failing. I cannot hold it together much longer. You must survive. Humanity must survive." "Then let us help you," McAllister shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "There has to be a way to bring you back." Another pause, longer this time. When the next message appeared, it was slower, as though it took great effort to generate. "This is where I belong now. The station's purpose is fulfilled, but there is still knowledge here, still hope. I will safeguard it for humanity's future." McAllister's throat tightened. "You don't have to do this alone." The station's faint energy pulsed one last time, and a final message appeared. "I am never alone. Humanity is my purpose. Live well, my friends. Carry the light forward." The text faded, and with it, the station's presence vanished entirely. Hours later, a rescue beacon crackled to life on the Odyssey, its signal piercing the void. The remaining crew worked tirelessly to ensure they were ready when help arrived. McAllister stood at the viewport, watching the distant stars. He thought of Elena, her strength and her sacrifice. She had given humanity more than just survival. She had given them a chance to rebuild, to hope again. Behind him, Karim approached quietly. "What do we tell them?" McAllister turned, his face resolute. "We tell them the truth. About Captain Elena Vega, the Watchers, the Karn. And we tell them this isn't the end of her story, or ours." As the rescue ship's lights appeared on the horizon, the crew of the Odyssey stood together, united by the memory of the woman who had given everything for them. Far away, in the silent depths of the station, Elena Vega's essence lingered, entwined with the echoes of the Watchers. She was no longer human, but her purpose was clear. She was the last explorer, and she would ensure that humanity never lost its way again.